Hey VC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to post a quick video here. This is actually going to be a response video to Memphis Vinyl Gym uh, and the Missus. A quick video response to their thread that they put up actually about 3 or 4 weeks ago now. Excuse me. Didn't pop up my thread for whatever reason, and I saw someone's response and kind of traced it back and discovered they had a contest out there. So I definitely want to jump on board and do a quick response to that. Um, I love Jim and the Missus. We've had a chance to hang out before in the past, and I know they've had a little bit of a hiatus from the VC as well as I had my little hiatus as well. So I definitely want to just kind of reconnect with them, and definitely look forward to maybe hanging out again for sure because they were a riot. We had a great time that weekend. But yeah, guys, had to jump on board your contest. Pay the respects and just kind of share a few things that I think might fit into what you were talking about with your thread question there. And basically, it was kind of you know with whatever you might be into, you kind of refer to it as picking your lane, and maybe just kind of going in and showing some things that you know people might want to check out within that genre, whatever the case may be. Or you said we have the option of just kind of staying in the soul cellar with you guys because you guys are really like soul music and stuff like that. I mean, of course, we live in Memphis, so I decided to do that because those of you that know me, you kind of know my lanes are all over the freaking place. So try to follow my lanes is like trying to follow a drunk driver or something. But so I decided just to go ahead and stay in the soul lane with you guys and just share some of my favorites as well as maybe sharing one or two things, hopefully, that maybe you haven't seen or haven't been as familiar with, but I'm sure you guys will find most of these to be pretty common. But just some of my initial soul favorites that came right off the top of my head. So yeah, I'm going to stay in the soul lane with you guys and let's just kind of jump in. The one CD I'm going to show is this one right here, which is George Jackson. And this is a You Can Count Me Out, or Don't Count Me Out, I'm sorry. The Fame Recordings, a fantastic CD. I mean, if you are a true old school soul, we're talking like, early Stax, Motown, that type of thing, you have got to have this CD without question. My favorite song off of it is Search Your Heart. I mean, it's one of the best 60s soul love songs I think I've ever heard, quite frankly. And there was so much stuff that, like all this stuff by George Jackson, he was a producer, I believe, producer or writer. I think he was a producer. But anyway, he worked a lot behind the scenes, so he was really, kind of doing stuff for other artists. And there was all these tracks and everything that he had kind of laid down himself, but just never got released. And that's kind of what this, CD. This is volume 2 or volume 1. There's 2 volumes out. Kind of got released of like, hey, here are some recordings that never got put out there, and oh my gosh, what the heck were they thinking? Because they set on some huge sellers off of this. But yes, a fantastic CD. And again, the first song I recommend checking out is Search Your Heart. I think it shows exactly what he can do and how he does it. So smooth. And they just issued some of this on vinyl, but of course the one issue that the album they reissued or issued for the first time doesn't have Search Your Heart on it, which really ticked me off. But still, George Jackson, definitely one you have to check out. So some of the other ones here, we're kind of skipping around between some soul slash funk and a little bit of everything thrown in there, but just ones that have to be mentioned. The Delfonics. They are a must in my mind with any great soul collection. And again, when you look back at some of their more popular hits, you're going to be looking at songs like La La Means I Love You and Ready or Not, Here I Come. I mean, you listen to those two songs, and again, you just talk about smooth, pretty boy R&B from back in the 60s, man. Great stuff. I mean, the Delfonics are classic. And of course, you got to have your boys, Sly The Family Stone. This is their greatest hits. If you don't get anything else by them, they have a great box set out, which I picked up on vinyl and CD, and it has, tons of stuff from their catalog, which is great. But even if you don't like them enough to necessarily go that route, this album or this CD will give you plenty of Sly and the Family Stone to listen to. I mean, the true joy and celebrative nature of music is totally captured in this album. It really and it truly is amazing. Whether you're talking about songs like I want to take you higher, dance to the music, everyday people, hot fun in the summertime, sing a simple song, thank you for letting me be myself. I mean, gotta have it. That's a bad album right there. Another one here is War. The World is a Ghetto. Again, just another true collection of just musicians getting together and just producing, just heartfelt. I don't even know if soulful is the word. This is more. It's just the creativity of so many different backgrounds coming together just to create something that's very real. Let's put it that way. Definitely my favorite War album. Most people tend to know songs off of this, like the Cisco Kid. That's one of the more popular songs that people tend to say they like off of this album. But then also The World is a Ghetto and a Four Cornered Room, I think, is a awesome song. Very creepy, very deep, and just very soulful. So awesome record right there. Now, a couple of these pieces are coming out of the 80s here. One of my favorite R&B, I guess you can call them soul bands from the 80s, which is Cameo. Love these guys so much, and they have tons of albums out, but they really didn't become as big until the 80s kind of came along. And the best way I can describe Cameo is they're one of the most rock and roll R&B bands you'll ever find. Probably the most since maybe Funkadelic and kind of the bigger than life type of rock and roll, if you will, image they had within the funk that they did. But Cameo was definitely kind of that being carried over into the 80s. So this is one of those R&B bands that they just did what they wanted to do and how they wanted to do it. They didn't follow any rules. There wasn't we have to be like this if we're going to be in this genre. If they felt it and they wrote it and they wanted to act like this and whatever else, they just did it. And so, you can look at everything from, if you're not familiar with Cameo, you listen to songs like Keep It Hot and you'll hear the deep funk element. And then listen to songs like Alligator Woman or She's Strange, and you'll hear that kind of just wild playful element where they just did what they wanted to do. But this is obviously the album Alligator Woman. It's a pretty funny song, but then songs, of course, like Single Life and Attack Me With Your Love, and just fantastic band. One that's not maybe as well known, I definitely haven't heard anyone talk about this in the VC, though I haven't watched every video, obviously. But Loose Ends, it's another great band from the 80s. Nice trio. And again, it's just one of those bands that I really kind of liked. Two songs I would recommend from them would be the song called Slow Down, and then off of their other album after this, there was another really good track they had, You Got Me Hanging on a String. So again, if you want to check them out, those are two songs that will give you an idea about what Loose Ends were like. Another good 80s R&B band. M to Me. This is Juicy Fruit. And the song that you need to check off of this is Juicy Fruit. Great stuff. What's Her Name reminds me a lot of the lead singer from Royce. I'm drawing a blank on her name right now. But that 80s soulful, just smoothness. And again, if you're not familiar with them, check out the song Juicy Fruit, and you'll know exactly what you need to know about them. Definitely from an R&B standpoint, Juicy Fruit is probably one of my favorite, definitely one of my top 20 R&B songs from the 80s. So I definitely had to kind of mention them. As well as my boy, Alexander ONeal. He used to do a lot of collaborations with Sherelle. They had songs like Saturday Love and a few other things. Innocent off of this, they did a collaboration on. But again, when you talk about just what he can do from an R&B standpoint, the song "If You Were Here Tonight" again explains everything I think you need to know about Alexander ONeal. That is a groove and a half, without question. So that's another great one. And I see one more here before we start going back old school. The SOS Band, another one of my favorite groups from the kind of 80s R&B time frame. And you know, again, between all the different albums, there's a lot of great stuff. On this album, you have songs like The Finest, Even When You Sleep, Sands of Time, just, you know, again, all kinds of great stuff. But my favorite song is actually off of one of their previous albums, which is Tell Me If You Still Care. You know, to me, that is the #1 SOS Band jam of all time. So, again, if you're not familiar with them, Tell Me If You Still Care will give you a great idea of how smooth this band is. Just Be Good to Me is a song that I think more people probably know because it's been used a lot more, and even like in sporting events and stuff like that. You'll hear that song pop up every now and then. But that's SOS Band. Now going back to a little bit more old school, let's start back over here. Every R&B collection has to have Bobby Womack in it, or some Bobby Womack. And there's a couple of different songs. You know, he had great stuff that went from the 70s and went into the 80s and everything else. But you know, two of my favorite songs by him. I have to like watch my tongue. I'm scared what I might say, disrespect him in some way. But off of this album is I'm Looking for Love, is again fantastic song. We go into the 80s with some of his stuff. I wish He Didn't Trust Me So Much. Definitely one of my favorite songs by him there. As well as A Woman's Gotta Have It. You know, another good classic song from the 70s that would be worth checking out. So again, if you're not familiar with Bobby Womack, those are 3 initial tracks that'll give you a good idea of just what he can do. But I mean, he is Mr. Soul. I mean, Bobby is a legend in the R&B world. So if you don't know him, make sure you do get a chance to check him out. I mean, he even had like, albums that came out as recently as, he just passed away not too long ago, but those maybe 4 years ago. The Bravest Man in the World, that album came out. I picked it up, and you know, he's been doing it for decades. So, and the man, if we're talking about any R&B, he has to be put in there. Bill Withers, you know, Just As I Am. I mean, few artists move me the way that Bill does on a consistent basis. There's such a simple and straightforward honesty to what this man does within his music that it's hard. It's impossible for me to listen to him without being completely moved. And when you listen to songs like you know, Ain't No Sunshine, especially Grandma's Hands, I bust a tear almost every single time I hear that song. And that's just on this album. You can go to, you know, all his other work. He's just fantastic. And again, most people tend to know him by the songs like Lean On Me and stuff like that, but you have to dig deeper into his repertoire because he just has just straightforward, just soul. I mean, it's so simple, so innocent, so real. The guy was amazing. Next, we're going to move on to a band I mentioned a minute ago, Royce. This is their greatest hits. Now, the most popular song that most people will probably know by them is Car Wash, because they were the ones that did the theme from the soundtrack Car Wash. But again, if you look at songs like, and Car Wash is actually on this album, but songs like I Want to Get Next to You and Wishing on a Star, I'm Going Down, again, as soulful as it gets. And I think, I mean, I Want to Get Next to You is definitely a jam, but I think Wishing on a Star is probably the peak of what they were able to do, because that song is just, it's beautiful. I mean, that's really all I can say about it. So definitely Royce. Now this is one that everyone knows, but you have to mention him. Wilson Pickett, the voice of all voices right there. And you know, he had all kind of songs like, you know, Midnight Hour, 6345789. I Found a Love, Mustang Sally. I mean, good gracious, just that list alone. Land of a Thousand Dances. So I mean, there's all kind of stuff. Um, but again, if you really want to hear what Wilson can do, what makes him so special, I always say, listen to his cover of the Beatles' "Hey Jude," and you go into the second part of that song where he starts to get into his belting and shows what he's capable to do, what he's capable of doing vocally, and it shows why Wilson Pickett was the Wilson Pickett. So definitely one of the baddest men to step in front of a mic right there. One of my top 3 voices in music of all time, which is saying a lot. And in case you're curious about who the others are, it's Wilson Pickett, Steve Perry from Journey, and Sam Cooke. And of course, Steve Perry and Sam Cooke are almost one and the same if you think about it. But moving right along, that's for another video. I've shown this one actually fairly recently. Curtis Mayfield, There's No Place Like America Today. Again, just that perfect mixture of actually kind of soul and R&B and gospel. A good mixture of all of that, and emotionally a good emotional mixture of all of that stuff. So again, if you haven't heard this album before, songs I would recommend trying out is, well, kind of everything actually. But Jesus is probably my favorite song off of the album. So now, I'm not one to, judge on anything, but if there's very few albums that I would say this about, but a soul collection cannot be a soul collection unless you get this bad boy right here and there, which is Isaac Hayes' Hot Buttered Soul. The funny thing about this album here too, and you kind of realize why it's so great, if you listen to it from front to back, especially if you're a hip-hop fan, you will be able to name, without exaggerating, 20 to 30 hip-hop songs that have sampled directly from this one album. I mean, there is so much stuff that came off of this album, it's not even funny. And it's because it was a bad R&B album. It's definitely Isaac at his peak, and probably, again, Don't Let Go is probably my second favorite Isaac album. This would definitely be my first. Yeah, so this album it's a must-have for any soul collection. And there's just 2 more I'm going to show. I don't even know if I necessarily consider this soul, but I'm going to go ahead and add these ladies in there. The Emotions, Rejoice. And I mainly pull this out, not because it's necessarily a fantastic album from start to finish, but the main reason is because the song The Best of My Love, or Best of My Love, is on this album. And then to me, that song is one of the most perfect tracks ever laid down, and definitely has probably the most perfect groove ever laid down on a song. And again, in my mind, for me to say that means a lot in my world of music. It's the perfect grooved track, and these ladies nailed it. So I definitely have to give them a shout out in the soul corner. And last but not least, again, maybe one I'm assuming, Jim, you and the missus maybe have not heard of before, but you probably have. But Ray Goodman and Brown. Now, this album definitely holds a lot of memories for me, because when I was some of my early memories, when my older brother got his first boom box ever, and I'm probably in 3rd grade or something like that. So I don't have any tapes. I don't have any, we didn't have money for that, number one, but somehow for his birthday or something, he got this boom box. And so he had a couple of tapes, and one of the tapes that he had a song off of this album, which is the song Special Lady. And so, listening to that song so much, and just, hearing it coming out of his boom box, and just being so excited about being able to listen to it, and hearing the lyrics back then and everything, it's just one of those things. When I hear that song now, it takes me all the way back to that time period, and it's definitely become one of my favorite R&B songs. So yeah, the song Special Lady by Ray Goodman and Brown is definitely one that I would say is worth checking out. Again, maybe more sentimental meaning to me, but it's a great representation of the smoothness of R&B back during that time frame. So, so there you go, man. Jim and the Missus, you know, I'm going to stay down in the soul corner with you guys. Hopefully, you know, there's some stuff in there that you liked. I'm really hoping maybe there's one or two things in there that you weren't quite familiar with that maybe I had an opportunity to introduce you to. But yeah, great contest. Great having a chance to touch base with you guys again. And as always, VC, let me know what you think. You know, I'm sure it's kind of late. I'm getting ready to go to bed now, so I'm sure I probably stumbled over a few things here and there. But as you guys know, I don't go back and edit or anything, so forgive me for mistakes. And we will talk to you guys soon. All right, take care, guys.